that beautiful music. And I miss you and love you. Good morning, everybody. The theme for January 2021 and the topic for today is Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. Ernest Holmes, in his Sermon by the Sea, wrote, "Find me one person who can get his own littleness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which I live." In the book of Ephesians, chapter 3, verse 20, this profound truth is written: "There is a power at work within us that is able to accomplish abundantly far more than all we can ask or imagine." Indian sage Paramahansa Yogananda wrote, "Most energy moves through space in a spiral form, a ubiquitous motif in the macrocosmic and microscopic architecture of the universe." Now, please say with me with conviction the affirmation: "Steeped in the wisdom of the ages, I humbly resolve to evolve." And now I would like to invite our dearest Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson back.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Powerful words to start us off on this bright and blessed new year, 2021. And what an amazing theme for the year. This is not only the theme for the month, but it's the theme for the year, this thing called Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. And our entire organization, our greater organization, Centers for Spiritual Living, as well as our spiritual community, are guided by vision. We have very strong, powerful vision statements and that guide us, and we continue to do visioning every year for the next evolutionary version of who we are as individuals and as a collective community. And I love that about our teachings, that we are always working toward living on the leading edge of thought and the edge of who we are in truth. You know, the fundamental principles of our teachings, New Thought, Ancient Wisdom, and Science of Mind, are ageless, as the Ancient Wisdom piece infers. They are the result, this teaching is the result of a synthesis of all the ancient wisdom cultures, all the various traditions, spiritual traditions of philosophy, of science, of psychology. You know, Ernest Holmes, who founded this tradition, our particular version of this New Thought version of it called Science of Mind, he was very much a student of all of these great sources of wisdom and scientific information as well. And he was very clear that this was his greatest awareness of the synthesis of all of us, these universal principles and practices, but also that we are to be aware that we are standing on the shoulders of those who come before us, and others will stand on our shoulders. And so it's a continual evolutionary process of awakening and unfoldment and realization and understanding of these universal spiritual principles that are part of our lives. And he also was very much aware that not only were we becoming something newer, some greater expression of the divine, but that we also needed to practice humility. So today I'm going to be talking about actually three basic topics, or points, steps, whatever. And the first one is humility and timeless wisdom, how important humility is. The spiral of evolution, and pulled by a vision. I'm going to give you an opportunity to do some visioning, just a brief visioning on your own for your own life. So if you have paper and pencil available, that would be a really good idea to just have that ready for when we move into that visioning process. Humility and timeless wisdom. Humility, an interesting thing. You know, humility has gotten a bad rap. Often thought of as weakness or ineffectiveness, and in truth, humility in its truest sense, a spiritual humility, is a very powerful thing. It is an awareness of our connection with the divine. It is awareness that it's not all about me. It's not all about me, that we're all in this together. It's an awareness that I'm not superior or inferior to anyone, that we all are these amazing divine beings with incredible gifts. So humility is a very powerful, and also it has nothing to do with confidence. When you are the most humble, you also have the greatest level of confidence in self, because you know that you're the self with a capital S emanates from the divine. So humility, I actually looked up on the internet to find 4 examples of humility, and they're all around us. They happen in our community all the time. But I wanted to give you some examples of people who were given positions of great power and who responded with great humility. The first one is Joyce Banda. She was the first female president of Malawi. And what she chose to do, her country was in financial turmoil. And so she chose to let go of the presidential jet and some 60 Mercedes and so on in order to get her country as much as possible out of its financial predicament. She did it from a place of humility, knowing that she must do her part for her country. Justin Trudeau personally showed up at the airport as Syrian refugees were deboarding and coming down the aisles into Canada, offering all of them winter coats. Another example, beautiful example of humility. Jose Mujica, Uruguay's former president, in 2009, after he got voted in as president, decided to not do what the presidents usually do, which was to live in this very opulent presidential mansion. He decided to stay at home with his wife on his farm and cut the expenses again of the country. President Barack Obama and his family spent their Thanksgiving at a place called the Friendship Place Homeless Center in Washington, serving the homeless and serving veterans as part of their Thanksgiving ritual. So here's the principle that is so important here that I want you to really get. And it's what we focus on is what we become. What we focus on is what we become. This has been a real important thing for me to remember. If we focus on these acts of humility in other people, we become that. We become that. And this is how the principle works. This is how we develop our character. Our character starts with our thoughts. Those of you who've been around for a while have heard this scenario of how it works. This is ancient wisdom. Our character starts with our thoughts. Our thoughts shape our words. Our words influence our actions. Our actions repeated over time become our habits, and our habits form our character. Our habits form our character. So it's important to make a habit of looking for all of those qualities of character in the world that we want to develop in ourselves, because it's actually within ourselves. It just is being called forth to be expressed. Ernest Holmes writes in the Sermon by the Sea that spiritual humility, not spiritual arrogance, is the pathway to evolution. He said our teaching should never have any arrogance to it, because that shows spiritual immaturity. He said others will arise who know more than we do. They won't be better or worse. They will be different and know more than we do. Evolution is forward. So let us honor the ancestry of New Thought, science of mind, ancient wisdom, spiritual teachings by acknowledging all of the spiritual traditions on the planet and the great mystics who gave birth to them. Knowing that there are universal principles that run through them and that are revealed in our spiritual teachings. So we are centered in timeless wisdom, and we are also open at the top to that which is new. Here's a taste of what we believe, the timeless wisdom that Ernest Holmes put into words. It's just a taste of it. This is not all of it. But it says, we believe in God, the Spirit, living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but it is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in every one, and that all people are incarnations of the one Spirit. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding. So that full document actually is on our website if anybody wants to find it in the About Us section. So we steep ourselves in study. You know, one of the spiritual practices that we use in our community is study. That's why we offer classes, studying the wisdom of all the faiths and cultures, studying contemporary books and sacred writing and materials of a spiritual nature. And we invite exploration, discernment, alignment with universal spiritual truth. And here's the most important part, practicing it, putting it into practice, applying it to our lives so that we get the results of that evolution in consciousness. So how can humility, and I'm going to add to that curiosity, support your conscious evolution this year? I invite you to consider that. Spiritual evolution. Spirals are present everywhere. Many of you have heard of the Fibonacci principle. The spiral nature that we see in plants, in conch shell, and nautilus shells, and in all kinds of parts of nature. And this beautiful principle of the spiral, I actually wore a couple spirals today to remind myself of the power of spirals and how that shows up in consciousness. You know, our world is a reflection of consciousness. The consciousness is the cause. And so just as you see spirals in nature, our consciousness moves in spirals, upward and forward in consciousness. The urge within us to evolve is so powerful and so strong that we can feel very unsettled when we're not in the process of evolving in consciousness. And we evolve in consciousness through meditation, through spiritual mind treatment, our own form of prayer where we remind ourselves of spiritual truth, and also through this powerful thing called visioning, which is what I'd like to talk about next. This whole thing called the evolution of consciousness, or this law of evolution, is a universal law. It happens to be there. We can see it in the ever expanding nature of the universe. Ever expanding, it's not static. It doesn't stay in one place, and neither are we meant to. And when we stay static and stay in one place for too long in consciousness, it becomes very, very uncomfortable. So the call then is to evolve and to be resolved about evolving. So pulled by a vision, I love to tell the story of the caterpillar to the butterfly, how that works, to remind us of, again, how this thing called vision, a thought, an idea, becomes our reality. And this is from Nori Huddle's book called Butterfly. So in the cocoon, the caterpillar's new cells are called imaginal cells. They resonate at a different frequency from the other caterpillar cells. They are totally different, and therefore the immune system of the caterpillar starts attacking them. However, they continue to multiply and create more and more of them, and the caterpillar's immune system can no longer keep up with these new imaginal cells. And pretty soon, the imaginal cells group together, first in smaller groupings, like little families of imaginal cells. And then these little families of imaginal cells start clustering with other families of cells, forming this long string of imaginal cells. And then at some point, it's like our tipping point, right? The tipping point in consciousness. There's a tipping point where the imaginal cells begin to take over and eventually give birth to the butterfly. This is a great story to remind us of the nature of not only our evolutionary process individually, but as a collective here on the planet. Those of us who are committed to conscious evolution and to being that light and that presence in the world, that beneficial presence, can be very inspired by remembering how this whole thing works. That we cluster together in spiritual community, that our communities cluster with other spiritual communities. We're part of this greater network called Centers for Spiritual Living, which is part of this greater movement called New Thought, and also in connection in the interfaith movement with mystics from other traditions when we get together at things like the Parliament of World Religions. It's very exciting to me what's happening, even in the face of what seems to be going on our planet. I know that this movement in consciousness just keeps trucking along, and we are being pulled by it. So here are some of the beautiful vision statements from Centers for Spiritual Living. Again, this is just a little taste of it, but it'll give you a sense of what's pulling us forward as CSL communities. It says, we see a world in which every person lives in alignment with the highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other, a world in which we individually and collectively are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. There it is. And we envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. And we envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area, providing sustainable structures to further the emerging global consciousness. I love it. I love it. So, more and more like imaginal cells, we too are awakening to our butterfly selves. more and more each day. It's an evolutionary process. It's not like a one and done. It's a continued expansion and opening to who we are in truth, the next version of ourselves. So the spiritual practice of visioning then that we teach fosters that, supports that. And so that emergence of that new self, that butterfly self, that higher state of consciousness and action is facilitated through the visioning process. We become something different, something new, something wonderful. So I'd like us all to, if you have your paper and pencil now, to give yourselves the opportunity to give birth to that next version of yourselves. And so I'm inviting you to close your eyes and turn within for a moment and tap into this higher vision of who we are, this being that is ever evolving, this spiral of conscious evolution that we are riding upward and like a forward and upward movement, ever increasing in all of those qualities of the divine, more peace, more love, more joy, more intelligence. And breathe into that. And then in this next moment, let's live in this question. What is the next divine version of myself in 2021? The next divine version. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like to be living the next evolutionary version of myself? And I'll give you a few moments to write. If nothing comes to you, I invite you to pick up your pencil and just start writing and see what comes out. What is the next evolutionary version of myself as the divine being that I am? And I also invite you to consider this next question. What must I release? What thought patterns and habit patterns must I release in order to be a vibrational match to this vision? What must I release? I know for me it's focusing on things that don't serve me. And the next question is, what am I to embrace in order to be that vibrational match to the new vision, the new version of myself? What are the new thoughts? What are the new habit patterns that serve? And so I invite you to shake off, release, you can just do it with your body. Shake off, release all those old things that you want to release, and lift your arms and welcome in more of those divine qualities, thought patterns that you know are going to serve you. Breathe it all in. Let's give thanks for the power of the word, the intention that we place in universal law, knowing that it is fulfilled by a power, the creative power of the universe that is here to support us in our evolutionary process. I give thanks for knowing that it is done, fulfilled in the highest, best way, under divine grace and in divine right order. And let's proclaim this truth and accept it with a powerful yes. And so it is. Thank you.